sphere with the tail. Otherwise, the ox has now been entirely transmuted. And it listens with great delight, presumably, to the boy, who, seated nearby, is charming the bull by playing upon a flute. Here, the spirit truly is entertaining the ox. And the ox is very peaceful, subdued, and quiet. This begins to suggest the teachings of yoga. For in all these Eastern symbols, the flute, with its several openings, becomes a symbol of the mantram and the mudra, the magic vibratory tones and patterns, the secret steps of inner wisdom, the meditations and the contemplations, by means of which man gradually brings the total personality to peace. Here the individual, the person, the being within, has brought harmony and beauty and fineness and tranquility to the thoughts and to the passions and to the problems of life. We now have that beautiful pastoral concept of man at peace with all parts of himself and in complete conformity with nature. And for the first time in our picture, the peaks of great mountains rise in the distance. There is a new and universal vista opening. The peaceful soul, dwelling always in the music of reality, is here something like the East Indian concept of the bull, seated while the divine flutist, Krishna, plays the wonderful melodies of the spirit. The spirit, the self, is the great musician, the great harmonizer, the one that strikes the vibrant chords of life, is now entertaining the personality, the outer nature, which has been brought into complete and perfect harmony. The whole scene suggests meditation. It suggests that the individual has now reached a point in which he has achieved quietude. And in the quietude of his own inner life, he hears for the first time what Pythagoras called the music of the spheres. He begins to be aware of the celestial harmonies, which cannot be heard because of the constant cry and the constant shout and confusion of mortal life. It is only when man is still, quiet, detached from all worldliness, that the wonders of the inner life can be made known to him. It is in this quietude that he hears the voice of the silence. It is in this quietude that the Spirit of God comes close to him, as this Spirit walked in the garden in the cool of the evening in the old story of Genesis. So here is truly a happy, peaceful, contented scene. And to most people who could hope for such an end, this is paradise itself. All is peace, all is contentment, all is happiness and rest. The striving and the struggle ends, and the individual seemingly has reached his goal. But in the Eastern Zen philosophy, this is not the end. This is only a pleasant interlude. This is a promise of still greater things to come, more to be accomplished. But it is certainly the dividing point which brings in the second half of the series. In the sixth picture, it is the first of a second set of 5 which together make the entire pattern. Here we see the contemplative taking over, the inner life becoming victorious, and the individual turning more and more to the mysteries of the internal in the development of his discipleship and the patterns which lead to his emancipation. Now, at this stage of the picture, we see in view 7 that there is no longer any halter on the ox. The ox has had the halter removed. Also, all of its body is now white. The boy is now sitting on the far bank of a stream which flows between him and the ox. And the boy is sitting under a tree very quietly in meditation. And the ox is drinking deeply of the waters of everlastingness. Here we have the self which has found its ultimate peace and security. We find the contemplating consciousness detached from all the labors of things, of the great liberation which wisdom brings into the life of the person who is truly wise. The wise man is not one who is able to resist temptation, for beyond this is a greater virtue, the simple virtue of being untouched by temptation. Instead of being strong in the presence of problem, the individual is problemless. Instead of controlling his emotions, he finds that they no longer arise within him to be controlled. But when he has reached the point represented by this picture, and his nature has been fully inwardly transmuted, then there is no longer any need for the eternal watchfulness of consciousness over the conduct of the person. Consciousness is no longer a policeman. Morality, ethics, conscience are no longer the heartless dictators of conduct. The enlightened mind, the redeemed emotions, the purified body, these are now dwelling forever in peace together. There is no longer any problem, any rise of problem. Nothing can lure the consciousness away from the simple dignity of its own peacefulness. Though there may be confusion around it, it will never be confused again. It has formed its inward pact with reality. And the individual then has the strange freedom of being able to do anything that he wants to do, because he will never want to do anything that isn't good. This is a very high degree of your Zen mysticism, but it is represented in this picture. The boy is no longer even watching the ox. The ox is now completely subdued, and it drinks of the edge of a stream which in this view divides it from the boy. And in the Buddhist philosophy, and also in most other religions, by the way, you have this stream of water. In the old Christian theology, it was the Jordan, and the old hymns about gathering on the other shore to welcome souls that have come finally to the bank of the river between this world and the next. The Egyptians had their celestial Nile that flowed through the Elysian fields, making them fertile. And in Buddhism there is a strange ocean across which the ship of the doctrine carries souls to peace and truth. And at this stage in the development of our story, there is between the boy and the ox the mysterious river of life that divides form from spirit, divides one world from the other. And this mysterious divider was always shown in the old mystery religions and things of that nature as a kind of temptation, a test or a trial that the individual had to learn to bridge in some way through his own understanding. He must build a bridge to bind the worlds together. For the spirit belongs in one region and the body in another. But the ox now is drinking of the waters of foreverness. It has no longer bound itself to the material plane or the material garden in which it lived. It is seeking also the everlasting waters of the Spirit, that those who drink thereof shall never thirst again. So we find the purified ox now also beginning its acceptance of the great universal mystery of life nutrition. It is beginning to live not on the bread of this world, but upon the fruits of the Spirit. And little by little, its dependency upon nature, its dependency on the earth, its dependency on all mundane things is lessened. It has a source of food ye know not of. It has a source of constant wealth and strength and insight that flows out of everlastingness. So the ox in its own quiet way is attaining its discipleship. It is becoming the redeemed and purified and vitalized instrument for the manifestation of consciousness itself. It's a very pleasant, pastoral, happy scene. The mountains are not as veiled as they were before, and everything seems to suggest a wonderful enrichment and a wonderful purposefulness in all that happens. And so we come finally to the next scene. And in the next scene, something strange has happened. The earth has disappeared. The outer world has vanished utterly, and our ox, now, I might say, looking a little embarrassed by it all, is wandering around on a beautiful feathery cloud, which is a very difficult place for an ox to be. It seems to be almost up to its knees in clouds, and it is becoming almost like the mysterious heavenly ox of the Chinese fable of the Bridge of Magpies, which is one of the old legends of the shepherd boy and his ox, and the spinning maiden who wove the garments of the star gods. It's a very beautiful old Chinese fable. But now the ox is beginning to look the embarrassed part of a saint in its own right. The boy is still there, but he seems to be standing on some intangible ground also. There are no longer any mountains, there are no longer any rivers, but in the sky is a ball that may represent the sun, and also 4 stars linked together with lines, the ancient Chinese way of representing a constellation. So the bull is now being picked up or gathered up like the Mithraic bull that was raised to become the constellation of Taurus. Now the symbol of the personality is moved out of worldliness entirely, and the individual, having achieved a very much higher state of meditation, is now advancing into the unregenerated ox. But that as these faculties are regenerated, he returns to his universal citizenship. That he neither needs the world, and for in that matter does the world need him. For the world will never understand him, and he will never understand the other. The boy and the ox, strangely, have an interval between them, which is not easy to cross. Yet each in its own way achieves a victory over the mystery of separateness. And that is represented in this particular story. In meditation, the being and its mind, the emotions, the whole psychic integration that we know, suddenly experiences an aloneness in space. The self and the personality together float in the clouds. They are no longer attached or related to any objectivity whatsoever. Yet the meditating mystic still thinks, still feels, is still moved by all the most refined and transmuted emotions and moods